On today's episode, we're sitting down with Alexandra Paez-Ferreira, a passionate perinatal mental health advocate specifically focusing her time supporting Latinx and BIPOC parents. Becoming a mom to identical twins came after years of devastating infertility issues. We'll hear how Alex's difficult journey to motherhood has fueled her dedication to the perinatal population by encouraging others to advocate for themselves, to speak up about how they're really feeling, and by holding space for healing. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the I Am One podcast are the speaker's own. Tuning into this podcast is not a replacement for therapy or any other form of professional help. Our discussions cover personal stories of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders and may feel triggering to some listeners. Your number one priority is to take care of yourself. So if you are in need of help, please reach out to the PSI helpline by calling or texting HELP to 1-800-944-4773 for help in English and in Spanish. At PSI, we want you to know you are not alone, you are not to blame, and with help, you will be well. Okay, let's get on with the podcast. Alex, welcome to the pod. We are thrilled to be sitting down with you today to hear some of your lived experience and also hear about the exciting ways that you're supporting folks in the perinatal period now. So thank you for being here with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really excited. I've always been on the other side of the mic. Like I have interviewed people, but I never been on this side. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking.
Is this our first podcast host that we are also interviewing? Have we had any other hosts on yet, Emily, that you can remember?
If you want to call me a host, I really appreciate it.
We will call you a host. How many? Because you did a handful of episodes, right?
Yeah. So the podcast, the idea actually came before the pandemic. So my idea was for a YouTube channel. I'm Latina, so we like to cook. We like to share stories while we're cooking and we're eating. So the idea was basically to create like a channel in which I will invite my friends who are mothers and we will kind of like cook and share recipes. So that was the idea. But then the pandemic happened. And I think I stopped because then I decided, why not add another master's degree to my arsenal of
You know
degrees?
what? I am not busy enough. Let's do another thing.
Yeah, let's do another thing on it on top of everything else. You know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. What else can happen? So I bet on the school bet on me, and here I am. 3 years later since I got accepted, 1 year later since I graduated, I became a licensed social worker.
Woohoo.
Woohoo.
Great. I mean, I didn't even have to ask the first question. Usually I just say, hey, can you give me a little introduction? You very smoothly went right into it. And Alex, you have kids of your own?
Yes, I do. So I have identical twins. They're going to be 6 years old. So a little background, a little context on that one.
Yeah.
So I have fertility issues coming out since 2007.
Oh, wow.
And then I think it went on for like 10 years after 5 miscarriages.
That is a long journey.
Changing doctors here and there because nobody was giving me answers. Or because one of the things, this was back in 2007 when it all started. So back then we didn't know anything about perinatal health and mental health issues, none of that. And, they were kind of like grabbing themselves. Well, you're young. So when I had my first miscarriage, I was 25, 26. And they were like, well, you're too young. You are going to be able to have one eventually. I was like, oh, okay. And then based on statistics, you kind of like go on to have 2 or 3. By the third one, they're supposed to take it more seriously. But by the third one, nobody took it seriously. I was like, something's happening. There is this very, I don't want to call it coincidence anymore if I'm miscarrying at 5 weeks. Something is happening at 5 weeks and nobody seems to care.
Each time it had been at the same time frame. It had been at 5 weeks. Oh, well.
At that point, that was the third one. When it happened, it was 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And they were like, well, it just happened. You're young. These are very common, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, this is not happening. And then it happened a 4th time. That's when I was like, you need to do something about it. You need to figure out why. So this whole idea of like bedside manners, listening to the patient, that was me throughout those 10 years until I finally was able to get referred to a very good OBGYN. And she was like, this is your fifth miscarriage. At this point, all my miscarriages were done through DNCs. And she was like, I am going to do this as the last one because you're not supposed to. Because if you really are going to go on, eventually you're going to have children, your uterus is going to be so weak that it's not going to be able to hold the pregnancy because of all these DNCs. And I was like, okay. So on the fifth one, she was the one who, again, biopsied the pregnancy. And that's when she noticed there was a discrepancy in chromosomes. So she was the one who was like, you need to go see this person, that person, that person. And from there, everybody was like, well, we have to do some more testing. You have to get your chromosome tested. Your husband has to get his chromosome tested. And then at that point, everything kind of like went through. And she was like, "Hey, you're gonna have going to see the specialist, the one that that I'm going to refer you," because there was a choice. So either you IUI, but that will have kind of like still with the same chances of miscarrying because it's not control, and then you have IVF, which is more control. You will be able to choose your embryos. We will be able to biopsy your embryos before they actually get transferred, so that way we know there's no abnormalities and the higher the chances of getting pregnant. So thankfully, I found that person who actually listened, and thankfully as well, this a specialist was also he was a good listener. He was like, enough is enough as well, and he pretty much did a whole treatment that eventually I was able to get on my first IVF cycle. I was able to get 3 embryos after everything else was tested. And then after the two fail, because I won the first one I miscarried. So by then I had 6 miscarriages. And then the second one didn't took the second transfer. And then the third one was only 1 embryo. That's all I remember. So I went on November.
Supposedly,
Yes,
allegedly,
supposedly, allegedly.
yeah.
I went on November 13th, and you're supposed to wait 10 days after transfer to be able to know whether to be able to learn whether you were pregnant or not. So I learned it a day before Thanksgiving. And throughout all this ordeal, I think after the fourth miscarriage, I kind of like decided if I will become pregnant, whether natural or through IVF, I didn't want to tell anyone about it other than my husband because I'm like, I can't put anybody through that process, like the grieving process. At that point, we didn't know that was grieving either. Like nobody talks to you about these things. And I was like, we're gonna keep this under the wrap. So the day before they called me, they left me a voicemail because I was working. I learned that I was pregnant like as soon as I got home. The nurse left me an email. She was like, "Oh, congratulations, blah blah blah." I was like, "It's my third transfer attempt. I already had 6 miscarriages behind me." And at this point, hearing the word "congratulations, you're pregnant," instead of make me kind of like elated or us elated, because he was next to me when we heard the voicemail, it was like, here we go again. We're gonna go into this roller coaster. Like we're supposed to be happy, but we're not.
It's almost like this like sharp intake of breath that you then are going to hold
Yeah.
until you feel comfortable enough to exhale.
So
Ugh.
the day of Thanksgiving, we sat down. We also just bought a house at that point. So it was our first Thanksgiving celebration in our new home. So we invited both of our families. We try to keep it as small as possible. We like to make parties out of everything. That's cultural.
Uh-huh.
But this time around, I was like, I don't feel like I really want to be around people. I feel like I'm supposed to be happy, but I'm kind of more conscious about that happiness. And running through that dinner without not telling anyone about that I was pregnant or that I even went through the process of becoming pregnant was it was the longest dinner I ever had, I think. The night was endless. So 10 days later, I went for my first ultrasound, and I remember the doctor, he was doing whatever he needs to do, and he's like, "Can you please hold?" your breath. I was like, why? Why? Why are you going to tell me now? So the whole issue of, or the whole idea of like, something's wrong. Something is wrong. This is over. Here we are again. Now we had to, you know, the good thing about not telling anyone was the fact that I didn't have to repeat the story over and over and tell anyone, oh, yeah, sorry, we miscarried, blah, blah, blah. I was tired at that point of doing that after the fourth one, that I was like, if something is bad going to happen, like, at least I don't have to do that. That was the least stressful part of
Because
it.
it's already exhausting to you and
Yeah.
your husband to just have to go through that again.
He was like, I hear something. And I was like, oh my God. So I'm pregnant, not pregnant. What's happening? Like, I was like, I hear 2 heartbeats, but I don't know if it's yours or you're having twins. And I was like, what?
I'm sorry, what?
Come again.
And he was like, yep. He was really actually very good in dealing and in telling me and walking me through that process, because he knew. So in that first ultrasound, he also warned me. He's like, we're not going to hear the heartbeat. I'm not going to pull up the volume, because every ultrasound before that was the thing.
That you didn't hear anything.
Exactly. And
Okay.
when I'm not hearing it, it was like, I'm so sorry, I can't hear it. It's miscarriage. You miscarriage. So he was already conscious of that. And for that, I'm very thankful, because the first thing that he says, we're just going to see whether it's in the right place. And that's all we're going to see today. We're not going to think about whether it has a heartbeat or not, because we're not focusing on that today.
Very sensitive care
Yes.
that you were getting.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody who knew how to communicate with you in a very, very gentle, sensitive way.
Yeah. And then he was like, no, well, I'm not going to raise the volume, but I hear 2 heartbeats, and I'm not sure if it's yours or if there's another baby in there. I went for 1. What are you talking about? I don't think I have 2 embryos transferred, because I only have 1 left.
And he's like, let me tell you something cool about science.
Science.
Guess what can also happen?
Well, we knew of the risk of having multiples, because that's one of the main risks of having multiples when you do an IVF. But it's higher. The percentage is higher when you are doing several embryo transfers at the same time. And when he actually told me, I was like, yep, they're identical twins. The embryo actually split. And I was like, how come? He was like, yeah, it's split. There's a 2% chance when you do go through IVF and you transfer an embryo, there's 2% chance of having identical twins. And I was like, ah.
Okay. Gotta go buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah, I was just
Be
going
right
to say,
back.
you
The
lucky
funny part is
person.
that my husband wasn't with me at that ultrasound,
Oh, jeez.
because I was in New York for all of this. So my team was a New York medical team. And you know how New York City downtown is, there's no parking.
Yeah.
And at the time of my appointment, it was really late. So all the parking lots were also full. So he was like, I guess I'm going to stay in the car while you go upstairs.
It's like driving around the block doing whatever.
If anything, just call me. I mean, I think
if anything, just call me. Well.
Yes, when he said that. I think he also was bracing for the worst. I think he was already we were already so into like, yeah, this is going to be another bad news. This is going to be like, whatever. And I didn't call him after he told me I was having twins. They did all the testing. They went to draw my blood, and I was like, okay, I have to go by, because I don't know. I was numb.
I can't imagine what it would have been like for you to hop back in the car and be like, well.
Actually, I walked. So he was parked in a corner, and I remember coming down with the biggest grin on my face.
Oh.
But I knocked on his window. I remember knocking on his window. He brought it down, and he's like, he saw me, and he's like, we're having twins. I was like, how do you know? Did the doctor call you? He's like, no, I just had a hunch. And I remember just driving back home quietly. Neither one of us talked. So I don't know what was the concern on his side, but my concern was like, so now I'm having twins. And this is the history that I carry with me. So now I don't have to worry only about a baby. I have to worry now about 2 babies. And the whole idea of my body being able to handle two babies at the same time. It was comical, but at the same time, it was like, okay, so now we're here. Now what?
That's a lot of excitement and worry. And I can only imagine that like your mind was racing with all kinds of different thoughts and feelings in that moment.
Yeah, and I was also wondering and concerned about when I was going to be able to break this to the family, because at this point nobody knows.
Right.
And culturally, there is this thing, at least with on my end in my family, that if you drink with someone pregnant, it's because that person is pregnant. That person is 100% pregnant. So my mother, I remember in the midst of all of this, we were doing something in the house, because I remember coming back to construction in the house. I don't know what we were doing. She looked at me, top, bottom, bottom, top, and she was like, I had a dream 2 weeks ago.
About house construction?
I was like, about what? She was like, I dreamt that you were pregnant. Are you pregnant? Have you been doing the treatments? Because they already knew that we were in the midst of that, but they didn't know when exactly it was going to happen.
Yes.
I was like, I don't know. Why? Why are you asking? Because and the funny part about the dream, that she did tell me what was the dream about. She was like, I dreamt that you were in a room and there were two babies in the bed. Yeah. I was like, oh, I guess at that point I was like about to explode. That I told her, I was like, yes, I'm pregnant, and we just learned that we're having twins. Oh my god! She started crying, and I started crying. I was like,
Oh.
yeah. So that was like the moment of like normalcy, like what you expect from giving away the news. So I was like, but can you please do not tell anyone, please,
Mother.
because his parents don't know yet. We're not planning to tell them anytime soon, and I just don't want to. I'm in the process of like processing all these feelings, and I didn't tell her that way, because when we talk about feelings and how you're feeling and mental health and all this stuff, that's very no. Like, no. Like, I
So how
couldn't say
did
to
you
her,
phrase it?
no, I phrased it like in a way, I was like, please don't tell anybody, because they don't know. That was my excuse. They don't know. And
Like you want to tell them, but
yeah,
you're not ready to tell
but
them yet.
I think that was the first time I actually started speaking up as well, because I remember telling her, and I don't want to explain to anyone if this thing doesn't happen, why it didn't happen, or how it didn't happen. And
That's the first
yeah,
time. Okay.
yeah, it was the first time I think I started speaking up about everything, because I think at that point I was also already fed up with the whole idea of like motherhood, and motherhood is not for me, it's not ever gonna happen. I remember when I went into this whole IVF thing, I remember telling my husband, I was like, if this doesn't work, that's it. I'm not doing this again.
Too much emotionally and physically.
Emotionally, financially, like we just bought a home.
Right. Yeah.
You know, we like to travel. I remember that year, a year and a half, we weren't able to, because of the money that we needed to pay for these things. Because unfortunately, insurance didn't cover as much. It helped, but it didn't cover as much. And I was like, and this roller coaster, oh no! Like I didn't know how to process it. I was in therapy. I remember I was in therapy, because I did got therapy after my third miscarriage. I was like, I'm gonna go crazy if I don't
This
speak to someone.
conversation is on autopilot. That was my next question. You're hitting it all. Keep going. You're doing great.
No, but I don't want to do a
getting
monologue
ready
either.
to ask you. I was getting ready to ask you, about what your support looked like throughout this entire process. So you had a therapist?
Third miscarriage, I didn't have one.
Oh.
So I actually was already in social services at that point. And I was working with youth, and I was working in a health clinic, where we will receive teenagers who will come in and get a pregnancy test, and I have to talk to them about options while I'm in the process of trying to make a family, and I'm in the process of miscarriages. So that was fun. And I was
So
like,
was that so heavy? Did that weigh on you? Like just emotionally?
but now that I know more, and now that the whole idea of perinatal mental health is out there for everybody to know, I didn't know how to identify, like how to call it, or whether, yes, I was, there were points that my professionalism kind of went out the window. There were points that my face would tell it all. I wouldn't be verbally saying, if I were you, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't choose abortion. But there were moments in those, at least in the first four miscarriages, in that time frame, that my face will say it. And I feel like my boss actually kind of like caught on, because I had to come clean with my boss. I'm like, I can't come in today because I just went to the doctor and the doctor told me my pregnancy's over. Do you really want me to be there trying to be all present for the kids when I'm not even in my own physical, emotional presence in myself? She was like, no, you can stay home. But I think it caught on to me, because I remember in one of those supervisions, because we usually have weekly supervisions, she was like, you need to get help, because I nobody had complained at that point, which was what I was fearing. I was like, oh my God, somebody came to complain. But I told them, because coercing a person to not do abortion is not a good thing. It's a no in company policies when you're talking about options. And for me, there was a point that I think I unintentionally, it wasn't even like I wanted to tell or talk, but it was like I was already so fed up at that point that nobody was giving me an answer as to what was happening to me. And here I am and talking to you about your options. I'm like, so I guess
But
she
you didn't
caught
have
me.
options.
No.
Like in your scenario, you were trying to have options. Like you were trying to be able to be pregnant and stay pregnant.
And I remember that conversation with my supervisor was like, why are you such in a hurry to have a child? I'm like, hello, stereotypes, woman. I'm a Latina. I'm already 20. By that, I was 27, 28. So all these miscarriages happen in the matter of 2 years or 3 years.
And you're young, and at least in terms of like what the doctors say and what the science says, like there's no reason that someone in their 20s shouldn't.
And yeah, why are you such in a hurry? Like, why is it that you want to start a family at this point? And I was like, because where I come from, not having a child at 20, 25, it's kind of looked weird, you know? My grandmother had, what, 8 children by the time but she was 20, 30, between those ages. My mom had me when she was 20. For me, that was like the MO of my life at that point. I was like, now, thinking and reflecting back, I was like, yeah, why was I in a hurry for? Like, I could have traveled. I could have gone to so many places.
I could have traveled while my knees were still good and, they didn't pop when I was going up and down. Yeah,
Like,
I get you.
but, and then it comes to that point, or at least I learned this in therapy. So, yeah, by my fourth miscarriage, I was like, I need to talk to someone, because it's not only affecting me personally. I remember also having problems in my relationship because I didn't know how to deal with my grief and his grief. And that's when I actually learned that men grieve differently at miscarriages. So I remember talking to one of my coworkers, and she was like, you can call her and give her a call. She's available. So that was back probably in 2008, 2009. And I recently kind of like terminate services with her, like literally like 2 years, like a year ago, mostly. So I have been with my therapist for like as long as I remember.
Wow.
And then you graduated, I guess, from therapy?
No, I feel like I still have a lot to heal. It's not a process because unfortunately, so I had my twins. Nice. It was a textbook pregnancy. The doctor was like, "You're short. You're overweight. Be careful with be careful with gestational diabetes, high blood pressure, preterm labor. Like all this is gonna happen because you're short and overweight." And I was like, "Can you stop seeing that?" Please, really.
Got it. Thank you. Check.
Thank you. I got it. Like, yes, I know. Like, I can see myself in the mirror that I'm overweight and short. Like, that has been my whole life. But fortunately, none of that happened. And also, there's this high risk that when you're having twins, there's a very high chance. My twins were sharing a placenta. So there's a high chance of twin to twin transfusion. coming from this medical history background of miscarriages, of whatever, and then I have to pay attention to every single little milestone that goes through pregnancy. My therapist, she's not a perinatal mental health specialist, so we were just going through like the motions, like with CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy and all that stuff. Now that I know the lingo, I love.
You do.
I know exactly
Yes.
what she was trying to do with me. I was like, yeah, I got you, I know.
I see what you're doing here.
So it wasn't as specialized, like and then I started learning about all this perinatal mental health specialists, and I was like, maybe when of course it's costly, you have to pay for it, and some insurance don't cover it. So that's why I'm waiting to see if my insurance kick in and see if I'm able to get one that actually specialized on this type of things. Even though I'm like 6 years postpartum, I'm still healing a lot of wounds that haven't been
Absolutely.
able to heal.
Yeah, because I think like having the right language and skill set and knowing the type of space that you have to hold for someone, because it is different.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can talk about feeling anxious or feeling depressed, but when you talk about that in the context of this journey to try to become a mom, it doesn't look the same. It doesn't feel the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and especially because one of the things that I feel is like in this pregnancy with my twins, my body kind of like reward me in a way. I didn't have anything wrong with them. Everything went perfectly fine. I used to talk to them. I was like, your eviction notice is for July 2nd. Stay there until July 2nd. Well, at least until June, July. That's what the doctor, when I actually got the date, I was like, you're staying there until July 2nd. You're not moving out of there.
You're just managing their expectations right from the get-go,
Good job. Yeah.
Yeah, and they did. They did.
Oh.
Even though apparently every visit that I would go for monitoring for contractions or heartbeats, the machine will always read contractions. And the nurse will ask me, she was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Why?" I was like, "You're having contractions." I was like, "No, I'm not." And it's not because I'm trying to make myself stronger, and I'm not trying for these kids to come out anytime soon.
Yeah, you just didn't feel anything.
At the end of the day, by the time you're 6 or 7 months and you're having twins, you want them to come out because it gets heavy, and I'm short, and I have to walk around. I was like, yeah, no, not as. And she was like, "Are you sure you're not trying to be brave for yourself?" I'm like, "No, why are you talking about that?" And I can see the machine going.
I had the exact same thing with my first pregnancy too. They'd be like, do you feel? And I'm like, no.
I got nothing. No.
Not even pressure. She was like, "No, you're not even feeling pressure. Maybe it's and she would kind of like accommodate my pillow. I was like, "Maybe you're sitting wrong." I was like, "Okay." 10 minutes later, she would come back and she's like, like the lines, like it was like an earthquake machine. I was like,
Yeah.
"I'm not." She was like, "Next time you come back with your back, because you might probably have to stay in the hospital." I was like, "I'm not. That's not happening. That's not." My biggest fear was to stay in bed rest. I didn't want to
Oh.
because I knew I was gonna go crazy in a way that it would kind of like my whole idea was like I'm already isolating myself during my pregnancy. I didn't went out because I was afraid that something might happen to me in the middle of something. My haven was my house, and I wouldn't go out unless my husband was driving me or I had someone next to me. So in case I needed to have an emergency, that person would have been able to take care of me. But me going outside just for groceries and maybe like a post office visit or whatever, and then come back really quick because I wouldn't. I was like, nope, mm-mm. Because one of the things that the doctor and I talk is like, listen to your body. And whenever I felt something weird, because at this point I was like so in tune with my body at that point because of all of the story that I have carried up until that point, I knew when things were not right. And I was like, listen to your body. And I was like, okay. And I will be at the grocery store, and all of a sudden I felt like a heart palpitation. I was in my anxiety. I didn't know that. Thank you, PSI. Now I know. I didn't know that. I was like, it's a heart palpitation. I know I'm not safe. I'm not feeling good. So I would just leave whatever I was purchasing, leave it there.
Like, abandon my cart.
Abandoning
Bye.
my cart.
Yeah, sorry. By the way, that was me.
Oh, I've done that too.
Many times.
Grocery
'cause,
stores
yeah,
in northern New Jersey.
New Jersey, yes, because
Sorry.
I needed to leave, and then I would come back home, and that feeling will go away. I didn't know. I didn't recognize it, that was actually perinatal anxiety, and I was like, oh, now I know what I had. Okay, makes sense. Makes sense.
So after the kids were born, did you then like get diagnosed? Like how did you go from I don't know what this feeling is to that's perinatal anxiety?
That was my own research, because even with my therapist, like I said, she's not specialized in perinatal mental health. It was just anxiety. It was just a moment. I come from a background where I'm anxious, I'm depressed. We knew in that relationship between therapy and client or patient that I could develop postpartum depression, but I didn't see it that way. And I feel it has a lot to do also with my cultural background. We don't speak about it. It's so stigmatized. And I was coming from a place as well of like, if I say something, I'm going to find myself ungrateful. I wanted this so bad that I finally got it, double the blessing. If we want to go into that religious and spiritual side of my culture, God heard my prayers, and instead of giving me one, He gave me two. Well, who am I actually to come out and say, I don't like this? I didn't want this. And I was very lucky to have the village behind me. And even with that village behind me, I felt isolated. I felt weird. I felt alone in this process. Even though, because I felt like everybody was going through their own process. The grandparents, my husband, the aunts and the uncles, like everybody was like, okay, so now we have twins in the family. Like it was kind of different processes. And I was like, who am I to kind of like put my own feelings, my own emotions and tell them, hey, look at me. I'm not happy because I'm going to be kind of like looked at as very ungrateful. You wanted this so bad. Now you have it. Deal with it. And it's part of that culture. It's part of like, we don't talk about feelings. We don't talk about emotions. Keep it to yourself. Whatever it is, deal with it. So most people, at least most people in my family, didn't know that I was going to therapy.
We don't talk about Bruno.
No, we don't. Yeah, you're right.
Bruno is the hard feelings. We got to talk about it, man. Like, let's do the thing.
That song
True.
makes me cry, and then the other song, the one with the stronger sister. That's, I don't remember her name. It has been a while since I watched it, and it's because of that. On top of it, I'm the oldest in my family.
Oh,
So
added
I'm
pressure.
supposed to be the one who handles the pressure. I'm supposed to be who knows the three answers to everything. And you have a problem. My brother had a problem. My other brother had a problem. You know, I grew up on on that whole situation of being a parent sibling for my brothers. So who was I to come out and say, I don't like this? I know they're here and they're precious and beautiful and they're growing beautifully, but I don't like it. And the whole breastfeeding, let me not start with the whole breastfeeding.
I want to get into breastfeeding if you want to. But I want to say like this idea that like you're articulating how you feel would sound like that you don't want this. And I think that is like the universal truth as we like collect these stories, that like somehow transcendent of the cultural expectations, even the feeling that I'm not okay, something's not right, becomes a character flaw, becomes a lack of gratitude, becomes this other thing that is like insidiously not true, right? Why do we do this?
I don't know. Like in my head, I was like, if I tell them that they're screaming and they're crying bothers me, because it got to the point of that it was bothering me. I didn't develop rage, but I knew I was angry most of the time. Like I didn't lose it to that point of rage. Like I wouldn't. And if I would have been like the angriest, it wouldn't be against the kids. It will be with the person who was right there helping me out. And I remember too that we were lucky that one of my husband's family came over to live with us for like the first 3 months because my mom and his mom were working at that point, so they wouldn't be able to help me as much. So somebody actually gracefully accept the job, was like, come and help me, come and live with us. And it's still like that. I remember not feeling right about it. Like, why are they going to think? Like, I don't know how to take care of my own kids. I'm not a good mother. Why do I need help? Like, this is supposed to be between my husband and I. Why there's a third person? I appreciate, like, right now that that fogginess kind of lift up. I felt like it was the best decision ever. And I remember I wanted to be out of that reality of having twins, because this is the thing. Also, when you're having twins, you become like the unicorn in a sense, because not everyone has twins. It's like, it's not as common to have twins, and let alone identical twins. And the whole questioning, oh my God, how do you tell them apart? Or how do you know who's who? Or the whole little question, are they twins? I was like, no, girl, I just decided to dress them like that.
And they're the same size with the same birthday.
I was like, yeah, they just happened to kind of like, hey, I want to come too. It was for me going out with them, besides the whole process of like, I have to carry two of everything or double of everything. I don't think in the first year or two, I was able to actually enjoy motherhood the way, and I quote it, the way it's supposed to be. Because
the way that you imagined it would feel, right?
that's the funny part, that I felt like after everything that I have went through, I didn't have any expectations or any imagination at that point. The whole idea of like, you're going to have a baby and you're going to be pregnant, everybody's going to be showering you with that went out the window at a certain point throughout the whole ordeal. That when I actually I remember when I went into my baby shower, I kind of like went in late, and not because on purpose. It was because I was afraid and scared that it was becoming a reality. I was looking the other day because I was checking videos. You know how Google tells you, oh, this happened 6 years ago.
Yes,
And
memories.
yes. And there's this video that apparently is still living in my cloud of me recording for 4 minutes, crying my eyes out because I was afraid of the 20-week scan. And you can see the anxiety. And I was like, maybe I should post this. Because, maybe I should post this. Maybe this is the reality that you go through. Call it whatever you want to call it. It was anxious. I remember it now, and I want to cry because that was what I saw. Was like, yikes, damn. I was like, who let me get pregnant and not get more help than I needed it? Because I was concerned about the twin to twin transition, and I'm concerned that on the 20 weeks that we're going to be able to see it. And the whole deal to kind of like deal with that is another set of medical skills that the doctor has to have, because they needed to do surgery if that was the case. And there's a big high chance that one of the twins wouldn't survive, or neither one survived. So I was like, what am I doing to myself? So yeah, so it was like, even after that, when I walked through my baby shower, because I remember I kind of like delayed the whole idea of the baby shower until like I was probably 2 weeks or 3 weeks before I was going.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because at that point I already knew I wasn't going to get induced. I wasn't going to get labor naturally. That they were going to do a C-section because one of the babies were breech. That's the other issue, that they never actually told me what was going to be that whole C-section thing was going to be about. I learned it as I went through it. I was like,
Oh, wow. You were not fully prepared for that.
no, it was just like, if he doesn't turn around by this date, we're doing a C-section. If he does turns around, then we're going to induce you. And that was it. That was the whole conversation. And then we never sat down and talk about, okay, so on C-section day, this is what's going to happen. We're going to do this. No. I actually learned every little single step on the day off.
That's not when we want to learn those things, guys.
No, we're not.
For the
Well,
record.
and even that day, when they were born. It wasn't still clicking for me that I was already a mom, that I became a mom, that I had twins. It was like a normal day. I just went to the hospital to cut me right open, and that was it. That's how I felt. It didn't click until one of the nurses, they were taking me to my room, and she was like, "Here you go, mommy. Now you're gonna be in this room." And I heard the word mommy. I was like, "Oh my god, I am a mom." But then, of course, there's always that roller coaster I was talking about in the beginning. So I became elated by the word mommy, and then it went down the hill again because they told me they're in the NICU with no date of discharge.
Oh God.
Were they little? Too little?
They were only 30. No, they were 35 weeks.
Good growing. Nice work.
I told them, I was like, you stay in there. They were actually 5 pounds. They were
Oh,
actually 5
okay.
pounds. The only problem, they had problems, one of them had problems breathing because of the position that he was, and then regulating their own temperature. But I guess hospital policies play a lot in these things.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah. And they were like, we're not letting them out until they're ready to come out.
And you're like, what does that mean? Like, don't.
Another unexpected thing, right?
I feel like there's a lot of them not telling you the whole thing.
4 days later, coming out of the hospital empty handed. It just brought back all those years
Right.
where you come out of a hospital, of a clinic, and they tell me, sorry, there's no heartbeat,
Empty-handed.
empty handed. Now that I know more about mental health, I feel like that NICU as well needs to have some sort of perinatal mental health psychologist or social worker or therapist. I felt like, to be honest with you, in summary of all this thing, is like I felt like I hit every single bad and good thing that can happen to a person who wants to become pregnant. The kids stay for like almost 4 weeks in the NICU. I had a C-section.
And during that time, during your pregnancy, postpartum, while they were still in the NICU, did anybody ask? I mean, they were kind of checking on the kids' vitals, but were people asking how you were feeling, or was it, do you wish that they had? I mean, I just keep thinking like the focus was probably on making
Yeah.
sure that these babies were born, right?
Yeah. It's actually the first time that I actually thinking about that question because I kind of reflect back on those days. I don't think I would have liked anyone to ask me how it was because the focus, like you say, at that point wasn't me anymore. It was the kids. I needed to kind of like, they needed to come out of there and they needed to come out soon. Would I want it now if I will go into that situation again? I believe so. The NICU is not a place where you want to hang around. My kids, thankfully, they didn't need a lot of special services, but you will see a lot of kids that needs that. And you kind of like leave every day on their endurance 3 weeks and a half. Pretty much you get used to the whole ding dong or the whole heart rate going up and down. You wake up in the middle of the night because you have a phone call from the nurse telling me that one of the kids, it's called Brady, which is basically the oxidation and the heart rate. They both go down. They're not breathing and their heart is not beating. And until that doesn't happen within the next, with like in a time frame of 5 days, that's when they get discharged.
They got to do the car seat test too, right? Like that's where they like
Yeah,
put them in
they
the car
pass.
seat, make sure.
They both pass by the time because they got discharged separately. So one got discharged first, and then the other one got discharged later. And that was another issue there as well of not being able to be in two places at the same time. I had the baby in the house, and then I had my husband with the other one. Grandmas are like going in and out whenever they were able to. And I'm like, that's my baby. I know I have to be here for this one, but also I wanted to be there for that one. And I remember the night before the second one was about to be discharged, he had a Brady in the middle of the night. And I went in the morning, I called because I usually call when we were on our way, what do you need from us to bring? Because we were able to bring stuff back then. This was in 2017. And she was like, I'm so sorry, but he's not leaving today because he had a Brady in the middle of the night And policy is that until they don't get one in 5 days straight, they're not going to get discharged. It was a lot. And then on top of this, they were not going to let me take the baby home unless I had a pediatrician already in place. Nobody told me this until I actually heard it from the NICU telling me, you're not taking him until you show me that you have an appointment tomorrow. I was like, are you kidding me? So in that middle of the afternoon, late in the afternoon, when most of the clinics close at 5 or 6, so it was 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, I had to find a pediatrician. And I found one from my culture. I was like, she's going to be good because she understands Latinos. And I remember calling her and she was like, yeah, we can see her. We can see him tomorrow. So I show her that I have the appointment. He gets discharged that afternoon. We go next. And the first thing that comes out of her mouth is like, are you breastfeeding? I was like, well, I'm trying, but it's not. Nothing is coming out, or a little is coming out. And let me tell you my story. This is not the only baby. This is part 1, 2 parts.
Uh-huh.
And the other one is in the NICU. And yeah, I have been like this for 2 weeks and a half, and I've been stressed. And I feel like she wouldn't listen to me. Well, you need to try better. You need to try better. You need to try better. And I was like, and every time, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I need to try better. I know I can. I know I can pump every 3 hours. I know I can wake up in the middle of the night, even though I have to wake up at 6 or 7 and leave out of that door whenever I had a chance to go visit the other one, come back because the other one needs me. Yeah, I can do that. I can. Like at that point, I was like,
My
super
job
mom
now.
powers. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's get this. Like we got here, let's continue. And then I came back with the other one, got discharged, got him the appointment. Are you breastfeeding? Girl, can you ask me how I am first and then you can ask me if I'm breastfeeding? I never advocated. And that was one of the issues as well. Like they don't teach you or they don't tell you that. Remember, this is back in 2017 when no one was telling you that motherhood or pregnancy or postpartum was the real deal. Like everything was pink and roses. And, you're supposed to wake up, those little signs that they put with the woman pushing the stroller with the leg up. This is not it. And that also kind of feed the whole idea of like, if I say something, I'm going to sound ungrateful and I'm going to sound like a crazy maniac that doesn't know how to be a mom because you're not supposed to. I remember my friends who were moms after that. After like a year or two, they became moms themselves and they were like, the hell you didn't tell me this? Why you didn't tell me this? I was like, because I didn't want to scare you. I feel that that's the reason why we don't talk about this enough because I didn't want to scare you and I don't want to feel embarrassed about telling you because I don't know.
And then you have to deal with somebody else's feelings about how you feel.
Exactly. And you're leaving your honeymoon stage and everything is happy and wonderful and your husband and you yourself, you're by yourself. Why would I come here and tell you about why this one was crying? Why did I have to actually walk away from the child? Because I remember he was crying and I learned why at one point. It was like, because they're cold. You're bathing them and they're going from a very warm environment to a very cold environment, which is having them outside. And I remember just crying because I was like, what am I doing to you? I'm not doing anything to you. I'm not hurting you. And I remember my husband was like, you need to take a break. Get away from the child. Go walk. Go do something, but get away from the child. And I remember, and that by itself, I understand what he was trying to do, which was helping me, but it made me feel worse because I'm like, oh my God, I'm not being a good mother. My child is bothering me with his crying. Like it was bad. And I was like, why would I come to you and tell you that?
Yeah, like you were feeling overwhelmed and overstimulated because of the crying. And then he came in, I'm sure, hoping to be able to be like, hey, I've got this. But it didn't either come out that way or your brain didn't let you hear it that way. And so what you heard was like, I don't think you've got this. So I've got this.
Exactly.
Our brains are a messy, messy place.
And that's why I tell you, like, I feel like, yes, therapy helped me to deal with me, not to deal with the space that I was in. Because lo and behold, I remember on my 6th week postpartum check, the doctor was like, "Are you planning to have more children?" And I was like, "Are you new to this, or you really read my chart?" I mean, I can if I want to. I can become pregnant because I have been pregnant before, and this is my what? At that point was my seventh pregnancy. But yeah, it doesn't come easy. So, and twins, hello, no.
Yeah, we're already
I got a
talking
lot
about it,
going
you know?
on.
Yeah,
I was
we
like,
were
can
thinking
you wait
about
like
it.
6 months and ask me that question again? But unfortunately, I was like, this is the only IVF I'm gonna do. I don't think I can do another one. I mean, it wasn't as bad as people put it in forums when I was researching that all the side effects and all that stuff. It was very easy. I think I'm one of the luckiest that I didn't felt beyond of fatigue and a little weight gain. Anything else beyond that wasn't happening to me. So I was like, oh, I can do this again. But then the emotional toll that takes with that, it's what I'm not doing this anymore. And if this
Just
doesn't
because
work
your body could
out,
do it physically doesn't mean
Doesn't mean you have to.
yeah,
that you should put your mentals through that again.
yeah. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. And if this doesn't work, that's it. I remember telling my husband, you're gonna have to deal with the fact that it's you and I and our dogs. And the dogs actually came from that idea that I was so wanted to be a mom that I kind of like put that mother feeling because I treated them like a children in a sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, unfortunately, I went end up having the twins. A year and a half later, I find out that I was pregnant. 6, 7 weeks, I had a miscarriage right in my appointment. I was
Oh,
actually
wow.
on my appointment to see the ultrasound to see if there was a heartbeat or something. At that point, I decided to stay closer to home. So decided to look for a doctor here in New Jersey. And I was like, crap, I'm going to have to explain to this person from the beginning
Yep.
everything that
Here's my
has happened.
history. Yeah.
Yeah. And while I was waiting for her to come into the room, I started miscarrying. She was like, you are miscarrying. I was like, yeah, I know that. Hello. I see that. I can see it. And, send home. And then 2 years later, so this was after the pandemic, I had another two miscarriages. And I remember when I went for my appointment for the last one because I continued to see the same OBGYN. I was like, I'm not letting you go. Wherever you go, I'll go. And when she saw me for the last one, she was like, the difference in this time around is that my miscarriages were considered miscarriages because they were not leaving my body.
Oh,
They will
yeah.
stay there until we say so, until we were actually taking action.
Right.
And she
Right.
wasn't, and she didn't, she's very reluctant to say, I'm not doing another DNC on you. You already have 5. You really want to have another one? I was like, it's been a month and nothing's happening. Do you really want me to keep going for another month, living life like nothing is happening while I have all this? And she was like, no, decided to go with be on medication. And that's something that I don't wish, not even to my worst enemy, to be honest. And I had to do it twice.
What were your symptoms?
So if I never actually felt contractions with my twins, I think I can tell you how contractions they really
Oh.
look
Yeah.
like and feel like because that's
Yeah.
and I remember the last one. The good thing about it is that I didn't have to go and finish the process with the DNC because the pills actually worked. And I remember for the last one, it felt like it wasn't going to work because remember, at this point in time, every time I'm going through a pregnancy, I'm not telling anyone. It got to the point that I decided not to tell not even my husband. On the third one, I actually hold the news for like 2 weeks before I decided to tell him. And the reason why I decided to tell him was because he wanted me to move a couch. And I was like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to tell him. I don't want
I
to, but I
need you
want
to sit down on that couch real quick.
and
You
I
might want to
and
sit on the couch that you think you're moving.
no,
but
Yeah.
we're not.
words don't come out. And if this was a surprise, actually, I wasn't expecting it because we it was 6 months after the second miscarriage after the kids. So everything went went through the medication route. and you have to go to your doctor to make sure that everything came out. So I went probably 2-3 weeks later after I did the medication.
Because otherwise, just for the record, there's risk of like sepsis and like
Yeah, because
infections and like
it
if it
doesn't
doesn't
really work.
clear on its own, it's
Exactly.
very, very dangerous. Yeah. Sorry, continue.
And I remember the doctor tells me, I don't think she was aware. She was like, I remember just her eyes opening very wide when I said, so this is what, your seventh, eighth pregnancy? I was like, no, this is my 10th pregnancy. And she just looked at me. She put her arms on my shoulders and says, what are you doing to yourself? And I kind of like looked at her. Like, this is the first time I actually look people in the eyes. I don't like to do that because I feel like that's very intimate in a sense. And I was like, I looked at her in her eyes. I was like, I'm not doing anything to myself. What do you mean? It's my 10th pregnancy. What is wrong about that? She was like, there's all sorts of wrong things, but I'm not going to tell you because I'm not your therapist, whatever. And then I went out of the office and I was walking towards the train station. I was like, you know what? I need to do something about it because I don't think I can do this anymore. If I need to heal and be present and 100% present for my kids, this is not helping.
It was sort of like you were leaving that door open, right, to the possibility of more kids.
Yeah, reflecting back on it, I still feel like if my body was able to do 2, why not give it one more chance? One more chance. And is that thing that hangs around the fact that when am I closing this chapter? When I am saying enough is enough? Do you really want to try it? Because I remember then after the conversation, or a year before that, actually, she told me, it was like, you are going to be 37. If you want to have more children, I suggest you go with your embryos because 37 and 39 is not the same. The chances are the risks are really high and the chances are very low. So if you want to have more children, go freeze them. Go back to the same doctor. He knows you. He got you. And I didn't went because I was like, do I really want to have more children? Because then with IVF, and this is the conversation that I have with everybody, I love when people ask me, oh my God, you have 2 kids. You have 2 boys. When is the girl coming? And I hate it more when it comes from the same people that knows the story. I'm an open book at this point. At this point, everybody knows about. I think people are going to learn about my 3rd miscarriage because that was something that I never actually shared. The second one, yes. The 3rd one, that's what pushed me to be where I am professionally. And personally, it was like, I don't really need to tell anybody about this. But, when you're in this and, trying to educate the community and trying to bring the resources, sometimes you have to share a little bit more on what you want. And I feel like I'm being a little bit, maybe protecting my mental health in a sense, but I feel like I'm not being truthful. And so when this comes out, people are going to learn, at least my family nobody knows about the 3rd one. I remember learning about the non-viable of the pregnancy on vacation and bedside manners. That was horrible too. I remember the technician was like, there's no heartbeat. I'm so sorry. But don't be sad. You have 2 kids. I was like, oh,
But don't be sad.
thank you.
But don't be sad because it's going to make me uncomfortable, is what he or she really was thinking.
And don't be
In
ungrateful.
Spanish, when she said it, because Spanish is a whole different language and it's very like heavy, emotionally heavy when you say things. They sound a little bit like very heavy. I was like
harsh or?
No, I felt like she was trying to be comforting, but it didn't came out as comforting. It came out more like don't be ungrateful kind of thing. And that word has hang around on me ever since I'm like
it's that word is just following you around.
Yeah, don't be ungrateful. One less is not going to make any difference. That's how I perceive it. Whether she did that or not, I don't know. But that's how I perceive that. And I remember after that, came back. A month passed. I remember I even went, it was our 10th year anniversary, our wedding 10th year anniversary. So we planned. And in my happy, peppy place of pregnancy announcements, I was planning to take pictures and everything in Europe because we went to Europe for our anniversary. And I was already by then I should have been 12 weeks. And that was how I was going to announce it. to our family. I was going to take pictures and I was just going to post them on Instagram so for everybody to see. And that trip was like the worst. And I was still pregnant, and I hiked the biggest mountain that it could be. And my doctor was like, "Don't do strenuous things because I can't do anything if you're over there and you miscarry. You're gonna have to go over there to a clinic or something." So, on top of knowing about COVID and COVID policies and how we needed to get around, I needed to, in each city that we were going to be in, I needed to identify and learn how to approach the emergency room of a hospital or a clinic in Paris, in Italy, in
Right. So
Spain,
you're like
just in case.
learning critical sentences in multiple languages. So
Yes.
that, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And my husband was like, "You sure you want to do this?" I was like, "Listen, ever since we embarked in this journey, for some weird reason, on every miscarriage that I had or every bad news about whatever, chromosomes were not good, whatever, coincidentally, we were always traveling the next day or the next week." And I was like, coincidentally, we came back from our summer vacation and we had that week off from work. Well, he had it from work. He was like, "We're going to Europe." This was way before we learned about the pregnancy. So we already had scheduled that whole week. And I was like, "What are you going to do? You're going to cancel everything just because we're going through this?" I'm like, "No." And in my head, or at least when I kind of thought or think about it, I was like, I was hopeful that they were wrong. The technician in Dominican Republic and the doctor here in the US, that they were wrong, that this was still going, because my body didn't want it to do anything with it. And I was like, probably when I come back and I go back to the doctor, poof, it's there. There's a heartbeat, everything is okay. So that was I felt that was mainly the reason why we decided to travel. She didn't. When I told her, I was like, "Well, I just came back and I'm leaving again." She was like, "Oh yeah, travel, travel bug, huh?" I was like, "Well, the border's open. What do you want me to do? It's apparently the pandemic is over at this point. It was 2021, yeah, kind of. So we can
Quote
able to
unquote
travel.
over.
Everything
Little
is
did we
cheap.
know.
Everything
Yeah.
is cheap, so we have to take advantage."
Yeah.
And so I'm not advising against it, but you're really gonna have to learn where everything is, just in case you have to go. Yeah, that was part of the homework before we left. How to say where is the closest clinic, or if there was an emergency number that we can dial, where was the
I mean, just
closest?
generally speaking, that's like actually really smart. Like anytime you travel to another place.
Yeah, but I never did it. This was
Right,
actually the first time
right.
I was doing it. I was like, this is weird. And then over there, I was like, I am not going to let this ruin the trip, especially it's a very special trip. It was very well thought and carefully thought out and made. And I didn't want to be like the party pooper in this sense. And my husband was trying to be very accommodating and stuff. I was like, "No, I want to do that hike. I want to hike." And in a sense, it was like, for me, it was the best and the worst hike of my life, because once I got to the highest point, I understood that everything was over, and I needed to come down of that.
This is the last one.
Yeah. Now, how I decided to close this chapter of becoming a mom, it's been a struggle. It's been a battle. And it doesn't help the fact that people come and ask me, "When are you having a girl?" I'm like, "Girl, I'm almost 40. What do you mean?"
Okay.
Also, I've been through
I
some
had two boys
things.
first, and then I did have a girl. I did not have difficulty getting pregnant though, so that was it's a very different story. But I feel like being disappointed or wanting the gender, the type of child that you do not have is something that like we really need to normalize and be okay with. If that's how someone feels, that is how that is, just hold space for it. But also don't, like, these people that are putting it on you, right? Like, they want you to want a girl. That have they asked you
I feel like it's for us, for where we come from culturally, it's just a matter of curiosity. It's not about gender. It's a matter of curiosity. Oh, you have two. You're supposed to have five. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not. Not in this world. Not in this economy. Hello, not happening. So
No, right?
yeah,
Have you
no,
Listen,
and
looked at the
that's
price of eggs?
yeah.
Jeez.
But that's my excuse. Whenever they're, I don't. Every time they ask me about it, I don't go and listen. I have like I have like 10 pregnancies, only
That's
two
kind of a
kids to
lot.
show up for. Like I'm not putting that on you. So every time somebody comes to me and asks me that question, I can say I was like, I start joking. That's my
That's your coping mechanism,
coping
right?
mechanism. I was like, you
Yeah.
kidding me? Like, hello, do you know there's no formula at all in Target? I don't think so. And for one or the other reason, I feel really bad after that. I was like, what's wrong with me telling this person that doesn't know me that simple curiosity is like, oh, do you want to have more kids? What's wrong with telling him or her the truth? But then then you come and see all these people asking, oh, why you're not having children? Why you still not? Why you still motherless? Or is it your choice or you can't? Like the questions are becoming more and more personal to the point that I'm like, a simple no will suffice.
No is a complete sentence. And
Hmm.
also, like you don't owe anybody an explanation, but also
you don't have to protect anyone from your truth either.
yeah, and you can say, but you are understanding how jarring, Alex, like that it would be for somebody in your culture or your family or, to hear. I don't think that I would like to experience another miscarriage. Did you know that it's been a long journey and I've had X number of miscarriages? And let me tell you, it is emotionally and physically tolling. Like that would,
Boom.
yeah, right?
Shouldn't
That would be
ask.
that's hard. Yeah, that would be an uncommon thing for people to hear, right?
And uncommon and I always think about,
But we're trying to make it common though. We're making it a common thing to
but
hear,
would this person
right?
hold space for me? That's what I'm
Is
afraid
it
of.
is it safe for me to share this information? Like,
Or will they just like platitude you and like
Yeah.
say what,
Oh,
like whatever to
you're
make
ungrateful.
you.
That thing again, right?
no, or the whole thing I was like, oh, don't worry about it. You have 2 kids. My cultural way would be something like, well, God make things the way He should. So if He wants to give you two, there must be a reason why He only gave you two, and He doesn't want to give you any more. I have had those. That
Oh,
has been like,
wow.
or there's people that actually know of my story, and that's their reaction when I tell the real story. Like, it's really difficult for me to get pregnant and stay pregnant. And they go into that. Oh yeah, then God do things for a reason. Like I'm still kind of like trying to understand those reasons.
Like,
I
what
mean,
does that mean to you?
Also science.
in science. Oh yeah, I remember somebody actually commented something on Facebook, and because they were very excited that I was having twins. So just my husband actually announced it on his Facebook page, and somebody was like, "Oh my God, thank you, God, and this and that." And I remember I was so fed up by the whole spirituality thing, and I was like, "And science." That was my answer, and thank you to science, because yes, and the doctor who did the science.
Yeah.
It was a lot of people involved. This was not just me and my
Team
husband
effort.
in the room. There was a lot of people involved in this. So yeah, thankfully, thank you to those people as well.
Like giving the like spiritual guiding light in our life full credit for things.
Yes,
Sometimes it takes away the amount of work that you and your husband did.
I felt that
It
that's the
takes
reason why I answered that way.
right?
Uh-huh.
Are you kidding me? Like I don't need full credit, okay? Like I am not almighty, but I would like a footnote or an acknowledgement somewhere.
I think that was the reason, because I mean I'm trying, and at this point I was like not feeling empathetic. Like I say, like no expectations, no emotions, no feelings, because if I say something good about it or I get excited, I am going to pretty much ruin it.
Mm. Like jinx it.
Yeah, you didn't want to jinx it.
I'm going to jinx it. I'm going to jinx it if I say I feel okay today. Oh, how you
Right.
feeling, Alex? I was like, I'm okay. You know, I don't like to be the center of attention personally ever since I'm a little girl. So being pregnant with twins, you don't want to be there.
Yeah, that was very uncomfortable.
Thanks to saying yes for being the center of attention today, by the way.
Oh, I know. I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of like DMs and messages. I'm saying, oh my God, Alex, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was like, you didn't know because I didn't want you to know.
Okay, friends of Alex that are listening, all you have to do is send her a DM that says, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, don't need to
That's it.
respond. I just want to say thanks for sharing. It feels good when somebody says, I just want to say this here, and don't feel I'm not expecting you to message me back. Just I want you to know thank you, or I'm here. Alex, throughout this entire process, these 10 years, these many miscarriages, twin pregnancy, did you know about PSI? When did PSI come into your life?
I remember by 3 years, it was almost 3 years postpartum. And I remember by then I knew and had an idea what was happening, but wasn't sure. And I thought, yeah. And I thought I was in therapy, so I was taking care of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to help. I need to speak out. I need an outlet. I need an organization. I need something. Like, I don't want to put it on Instagram. Oh, here's my story. You know, I was born and raised. No, that I didn't want to do that in person, like in my personal space. I wanted to do it through an organization. So at that point, PSI, this was in 2020. So it was in the beginning. So this was like the little baby steps of PSI, I can tell you. Because the only program that they had at that point was the mentoring program.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. We're fellow peer mentors.
So I remember, I don't remember her name, but I remember I fill out a form that I wanted to become a peer mentor.
Amanda?
Yes.
Maybe?
Is she still, she's not.
She's
No.
not with the peer mentor program anymore, but
She
she's
left to
doing
just
great.
do the mom thing for a little
Yep.
while. Yeah.
Yep.
And she was like, hi, my name is Amanda. I'm the coordinator of the peer mentor program. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited that you called me. I thought you were not call me back. I wanted to become a peer mentor because I want to tell my story. I want to share my story. I want to share my experiences. And I feel like I can be a good fit for somebody else who's going through this and all the stuff. She asked me if I already had therapy. I was like, yeah, I've been going to therapy. I'm still on therapy. And she was like, well, that's fine. The only thing that she wanted to do was to match me with the person who was having or who had twins and was going through the same process. It would have been a better match. So I didn't get matched with this person until like probably a year later. When I was matched, she called me. She was like, I'm so sorry, Alex. I haven't kept in contact with you because I've been wanting to match you with a person who actually went through the whole process of having twins, yada, yada. And I remember I was already in my third semester of my MSW. And because I'm super mom, I decided to took on it. And
You're
I
like,
was
yeah,
like, well,
sure.
I got
remember I was in a
time.
break. I was waiting for my next class to start and I pick up the phone. I didn't recognize
You were
the number.
literally between classes.
Yes. And I was like, well, what you doing now? I was like, well, see, I'm
Nothing. I'm free.
I went back to school, but I don't think school is gonna actually do like it's not gonna get in the middle of that. Unfortunately, it did, and I wasn't being present
For your peer.
for my peer.
Yeah.
So I remember I was like, I can't do this. I'm so sorry. I have so much going on with classes, and I have so much going on at home. I thought I was gonna be able to juggle it, to handle it all, and unfortunately, I didn't. So she was like, well, there are other things that you can do on PSI. Now we're growing. At this point, it's 2021. Yeah, because it was in the middle of fall.
The great expansion has occurred now. So, yeah.
And there's more programs and there's more stuff. At that point, I learned that they had the People of Color Alliance for perinatal mental health professionals. Then I learned that they have the support groups. That didn't happen until recently that I joined as a volunteer for facilitating a support group for Latinx and mothers and birthing people. So I do those twice a month, nighttime, 7:30 p.m.
How's that been for you?
I feel like it's a very safe space. My job is to create that safe space, to hold that space for other people that are going through their postpartum period, and in a safe space, and we can be also culturally sensitive as well.
Oh,
'Cause I feel
yeah.
like that's a
Absolutely.
People
lot.
understand that
Yeah.
that this is not something that you would go to your extended family about, because it's just, you know.
And I remember when I joined PSI as peer mentor, then they started coming out with the PMH-C certification.
Yes.
But I did my training, so I also, besides joining the alliance, besides doing the PSI groups, I actually did both of my trainings. So I have my 2 day component, and I have my psychotherapy
Your
training.
advanced training,
So
psychotherapy.
now I'm
Yeah,
just waiting
awesome.
for the experience. Like, I'm waiting to fulfill that experience, and then hopefully in 2 years or so, being able to take the test and get certified, and pass it forward.
That's awesome. Okay, I want to get into the lightning round because I have lots of totally unrelated questions for you.
All right. I heard the lightning round there.
The slow lightning round. Ready?
Yes, I heard that
Are
yesterday.
you ready for
Lightning
this?
adjacent.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Alex, besides this podcast, do you have a favorite podcast that you like to listen to? What's your favorite one?
They're in Spanish. One is Un Ratito Entre Mamás, which is basically moms who get together. They actually podcast from Ohio, so they're here in the U.S. But they are in Spanish, so they talk about everything about motherhood without any restrictions whatsoever. They say the truth, the real truth, and that's what I like. I was like, I
Yeah.
am going into this. I'm not sugarcoating anything.
Uh-huh.
And then, yeah, I kind of like yearn for mine. I wish I wish I have time now to kind of like restart mine. But Winding Over Motherhood is still out there if you want to look for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, shameful plug.
Oh,
You're allowed.
we like hearing from you. Are you a fan of a book in your ear or a book in your hand?
I'm still fans of book in my hands. So the latest book that I'm reading is called, I just posted it too. It's Unexpected Postpartum Memoir. It's from Dr. Emily Adler Mosqueda. So this book is very interesting because she wrote this book recently, and it's her second pregnancy. So she tells the story of her postpartum period on this second pregnancy, which was way much different from the first one. And the thing I like about it is that it talks from a cultural perspective on the, am I enough? Am I a good mother because I'm asking for help?
Uh-huh.
And
This is relatable, completely relatable to your
so
collective
I'm
experience.
in the middle of the book, like I'm reading like probably in chapter 5, and I can't put it down.
What is your go-to for a quick mental break?
Travel.
Do you have any travel plans coming up? Do you have a vacation like in the future?
I started a new job, completely unrelated to perinatal mental health,
That's allowed.
but it's related to my profession. So I'm going to be working with an organization working with unaccompanied minors as a case manager. So because of that, traveling has taken place back because I need to earn my vacation hours.
Yeah. Oh.
You're on a little bit of a travel hiatus right now. So I'm just going to put a little pin in your ear that next year's PSI conference
Where
is
is it?
going to be in Washington, D.C. So you could just drive right down I-95, swing by my house, pick me up, and we will
see
go
you
to D.C.
at the conference.
Yeah, because I'm not going to be able to make it this year, and not because of work. It's because that weekend is the weekend. It's my kid's birthday weekend.
Oh, that's awesome.
And also, Alex, next summer for the DC conference, it'll be later in July. So it's not going to be on their birthday weekend.
Yeah,
we will
like
see you.
2-3 weeks after.
You see me
You will
rolling in.
get Climb Team hugs in person, not just virtual, next year in DC. It's a date. Alex, do you have a favorite parenting hack?
The one that I established myself since 2016 was go with the flow.
Don't expect anything to go a certain way. Go with the flow.
When I learned that I was having twins, everybody was like, "Oh my God, now you have to put bedtimes, now you have to put nap times, now you have to make a schedule, you have to do this." And I remember I was like, you know what? I'm not. There's a boundary. I know there's a boundary somewhere in there, but I'm gonna let my kids tell me what they want to do, to a certain extent.
You're right. Yeah, we understand.
Let-
You're not. We know who's in charge. Okay.
Oh yeah, they're in charge. I
Alex, what is one way that you will show yourself some love today?
It's a very hard thing for me to do. I am gonna have to be honest. I've been learning within this process that I have been going around in the past 3 years. Radically love for me doesn't come easily. So it's something that I'm learning. I don't have, like, if you tell me right now go sleep or something, I wouldn't do it because I'm learning. It's been a while. Like, I feel like in the past 3 years I have gone through the process of changing certain things, setting boundaries, trying to speak up, trying to advocate. And I felt like if you want an answer for that, I feel like learning to advocate for myself is how I will show my love.
I was just thinking, you are loving yourself by speaking your truth today.
Yeah.
And you're already doing it.
I think that journey of like learning to listen to what you need is for me so very relatable. Like, I am happy to pretend that I don't need anything.
Everything's great. Totally
I'm fine.
Learning how to advocate, learning how to speak my truth. And it's something that I'm still learning. And I feel like I'm getting better at it.
Emily, you want to hit Alex with your
Yes,
your
I have
new
my
famous
most
question?
important question, which is, how do you take your water? Ice, no ice, bubbles, no bubbles, flavor, no flavor. You prefer your water in the form of coffee.
Do you not
All
prefer? Yeah,
are valid
yeah.
answers.
Do you like juicy water?
Right.
I'm being very health conscious. So I'm doing some changes, lifestyle changes. So I flavor my water with electrolytes, like flavor
Like a little
electrolytes.
packet.
Yeah.
Stir it up. That's my favorite too.
I can't drink unflavored water. And if I drink it unflavored, it has to have a lot of ice so I can chew on it afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, Team Ice. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, for sharing what is like such a long and vulnerable, like I want to acknowledge that the process of telling it is not easy.
Mm-mm.
And that we are really, really glad that you were willing to share all the truths with us.
And I thank you for giving me the space. And it's something that I feel like if I can come out with something out of this conversation, I have told the story many, many times, and every time I tell it, it brings tears to my eyes because it's for me. It's I was processing and I was healing, and today I actually didn't shed a tear. I thought I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna need a lot of Kleenex, and I'm gonna need because I'm pretty sure I'm gonna cry when I remember this moment. And I feel like for me, it's a sign of that healing has started, and and that I can become very truthful of a painful story with its ups and downs and highs and lows. But the fact that I haven't shed a tear, for me, that would have been a sign of weakness at one point in my life. And today, I feel like it's a sign of conquering in a sense of telling my story.
I was moved by your story, and I was definitely
Yeah.
I was shedding a tear.
Danny cried for you, so you're good.
But I feel very happy that I'm able to tell the story without actually shedding a tear.
Yeah. I think there's a big difference between telling a story and reliving all of the moments of a story. And is it feeling like that you were able to tell it without reliving all of the moments?
Yes. Not taking away. All I can, to clarify that is like, yeah, not taking away those moments and what they meant at that time. But yeah, definitely. They're not flashbacks anymore of a moment in time. They are actually stories that are there to be told, that are there to be shared. So that way, if there's someone going through them, they feel relatable. They feel like, oh, this is happening or happened to somebody else, so I'm not alone. This is happening to me, so this is not me feeling all kinds of sort of like, oh my God, I'm weird or I'm crazy. And that's what I try to, accomplish in the next chapter of my life.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the I Am One podcast. Check out today's show notes where we'll drop links to all the important things that we mentioned in this episode. Please consider sharing about our show on social media and following and rating our show wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. It only takes a minute of your time and, well, that'll help with our collective mission of bringing resources and local support to folks worldwide. From everyone here at PSI, thanks again for listening.